Ayutthaya, which was, I think, the capital and the empire of the central part of Thailand, starting around 1400, I think it was known as one of the great major trade centers in this part of the world. And it was a river port, believe it or not. Here's a good example of how that probably exists still today. Here's some local of that despicable sport of cockfighting. Inside some of it, kind of a temple complex that I'm actually trying to get around it to get to the Royal Barges Museum. After a long convoluted walk of misdirections and no directions, I'm finally approaching, at least according to the sign, the Royal Barge Museum. And I came from on the right hand side where you see the hatch marks across that building. That was the other museum that the signs I was following took me. And then they gave me this, which took me up there, down along this road, over the bridge, which was over the Klong or canal, and down past the military to this walk to the Royal Museum. What they don't point out is all the stuff in between, let's say here and here, what's on this side here, blah, blah, blah. This is the route you take. It's incredibly convoluted, I'm sensing. I can explain it later if I need to, but this is where I'm going, all through here. Just an area of refuse down through here. Now, if the way I go out is the way I came in, and it has to be, that is one of those you gotta be kidding moments. Okay, this is the Royal Barge Museum. Looks like they've got a cannon mounted on the front, unless it's supposed to be a light, or maybe it shoots water, I don't know. These are incredibly impressive looking boats. We'll look at each one of them in detail. This one was built in 1981, 82, and it's about 31 meters, 93 feet roughly, about 2 meters wide. And that is probably just a ceremonial gun. Looks like it's plugged up right now. Probably powered by paddlers, I'm guessing, since there are no oar locks. Very substantial boat. Don't know what kind of a keel it has. Doesn't look like it's relatively low or shallow as it sits in the water. I wonder how stable it is with these structures on them. It was used in the candle floating ceremony, whatever that was. Some more elegant tapestries. Second boat, a very large boat, perhaps not maybe the largest, but quite large. Notice the blue inlaid ceramic or something, and the green for the dragon. Very elaborate, befits a king. And like the pointy things on the temples, these probably have similar significance. Notice the serpents. Incredibly relevant and almost ubiquitous effigy in all cultures, it seems like, certainly as it relates to religion. Now what these posts were for, I don't know. If they held perhaps awning for the rowers. We're now moving from the back towards the front. The throne chair, if you will, very elegant, detailed. And the Buddhas. This boat is 44.85 meters long. Now I'm going to go up and focus on some detail all the way down through here. I will not be able to appreciate this until I get a chance to edit it. Must be a figurative goatee, looks like. There a Buddha, whether that's representing a flame or somehow related to the lotus flower, which is important in this culture, religion. Now looking at the third ship, we'll start at the top of the prow. Notice the Buddha there with 7 heads, and I think those number 7 is important. I think the serpent that covers the serpents that cover the head of a Buddha are often numbered in 7. This is a little bit simpler design in that it's taking pretty much a flat surface and embellishing on top of a flat surface. What I notice here is that the mouth of the whatever those figures are there are painted in red. I also notice though that white material, whether it's it looks like it's mirrored actually. Chunks of mirror. Here you can see the outline of the boat, somewhat like a kayak actually. The length of this boat, 43.67 meters. Here the fourth boat, the prow is very much dedicated to this effigy. Notice it holds 2 serpents in serpent in each hand. Has that Chedai, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it right, design on its head. Almost an eagle or a raptor's mouth or beak, teeth from wherever, and wings. So certainly it's reflecting a bird. Notice almost the allusion to feathers on the arms. Apparently the obligatory symbolic, if not ceremonially used, cannon. And before we get to these other next 2, which are quite huge, I wonder in what order were these made, and did size matter? Did elegance evolve over time as well as size of boat? Here are relatively simple housing for the king and perhaps his royal parties, but just benches rather than that throne that we saw in the first boat. Although here in the or in the second boat rather, and here in the third boat, a kind of like an open balcony type of throne platform, but very rich in at least its color of gold and the intricacy of its design. Again, the blue inlay, or background if you will, to that gold. Again, more Buddhas. It looks like a serpent there in the middle. The number of Buddha is oftentimes considered to be a worthwhile achievement. In other words, the more you got, the better. I wanted to try to get a look at this. I wanted to look at these to see if somehow these were attempts at Buddhas. But I can't really tell even looking with my macro tello. And here with this special lens position, let's take a look at some of this. Getting very detailed now. Notice that even on the Royal Barge, the Thai tradition of having a doorway, you had to step over a little sub-wall, if you will, in the doorway. Theoretically, in a house designed to keep kids from crawling out of a room, but I doubt it was for the purpose of keeping the king from crawling out of here. And all that is up here, white with some pretty embroidery pillows. Whether they have some significance in and of themselves, I don't know. Now I wonder what these two things are, unless that fixture up above beyond this larger area works like a drum. And maybe these were for pounding the drum. And it looks like a hole there for a mast, or again maybe this end of the supporting umbrella for the paddlers. And here, very relatively simple design element, simply black painted on white, or the reverse. A relatively modest tail end. This boat was damaged by bombs during the Second World War, so presumably it's been cut into two portions that did survive, and the rest thrown away. This was probably the royal podium, and they have not bothered to restore this. This boat just again seems to be less impressive for having had less intricate detail in it. And this one unique for its striking white color with the rather subtle design on the white. Dragon-like. Notice the red mouth interior. A smaller boat. Whether it's an earlier boat, I don't know. Here the last boat, rather simple, very, very understated, smaller significantly than these other boats. Let me pan across it and you'll see what I mean. This boat and the white figured boat, significantly smaller than the two behemoths beyond it. Did they serve lesser functionaries? Was the economy bad at the time? What is the policy in using other prior kings' boats? Or are these kings' boats as opposed to the royalties' boats? Certainly these triangular tapestries have some significance, and perhaps it's obvious in that they represent that space in the sea, or in the roof line, the gable of a building. Here, a representation of the paddles and perhaps the uniforms of those rowing in the Royal Barge. Again, probably the remains of bombed boats This one interesting for its flower motif. This, I'm guessing, is the prow of a what would have been a very large boat, I'm guessing, since from the size of it. Notice the size of the hole for the cannon. And then next to it, a throne tower, if you will. And a smaller one, perhaps bombed out on a smaller boat. Here we get a little idea of the construction underneath all that paint. The layers, notice some metal work there for support. And here actually turnbuckles holding it. Whether those were used on an original boat or whether they're hidden inside somehow, I don't know. Again, notice the Buddhas. And the garden outside the door of the museum, a little bit of whimsy. Here's a chandelier device that was suspended from the beak of one of the boats, as pictured in the photo behind it. Now this is interesting. It looks like a model of one of the boats done in teak. And here we see those posts sticking up. Not sure what function they serve. This represents a procession of boats, but whether in fact there ever was a procession of this many boats, I don't know. And the ones that we saw perhaps are all that remain. Apparently that is the case. Here are the boats, each one named. The sign there alludes to 90 boats in the King's procession at this time. There's some lithographs of old boats. Certainly grand in their extreme elegance. Here are just models of other boats now or in the past seen on the river. Here are probably some royal tapestries, whether they were used on connection just with the boat or just artifacts. I don't have any way of knowing. Here, quite a small boat. Silhouette looking from the back forward of the prow of the ship. We'll kind of treat this next to as a pair. Very, very high back ends, as you can see from where those people are. Very elaborate from the sense of gold, but not very intricate, but huge in dimension. Very much the same, actually, it looks like. Not identical, but very similar in design. The second of these two's prow is seen from the back. This going in for the effigy again, that same bird-like character with someone behind them. Don't know what that is, whether it represents a king or not, whether the fact that he's black is significant, I don't know. This more robust than the other figures, but essentially the same, holding snakes in his arms, and here's snakes in his hand and his feet. And this depicts the skeletal structure of the boats. Here a little aviary of what look like little pigeons. What their purpose is, I don't know. Whether they eat them or do what with them, I don't know. Pigeons and doves. Don't know if you can see it or not, but the way you find your way back through this labyrinth are these bicycle tire tracks, for lack of a better term, that are this route. Don't know what this is, but it's a very religious place. I was there looking for the Royal Barge Museum and people burning candles, incense, etc., etc. How much I'm supposed to photograph, certainly within the compound, I don't know, although I did a bit. Let me get a little bit closer look at the detail. After a busy morning of the non-touring market, and then a long slog to the Royal Barges Museum, I got back to Preet, which is the ferry stop near my guest house. Got a soda and a bag of chips from the 7-Eleven, of which they're almost on every block. In my block of my hostel there are two, one underneath my hostel and one directly across the street. So this is a pleasant little park, and parks certainly define to me any community. What's nice is that here it's near the river and there's a nice breeze wafting across the park, even though I'm somewhat under a tree that doesn't give full shade. The Royal Barges, and it was the second day that I was cruising about. Also, Bangkok also went to pick up my Vietnam visa from the embassy. And the next tape, number 2, will be my Bangkok Rakutosen walk.